Well, hello there, gamers. Funny little surprise that they dropped for us today. I was resigned to just never hearing Splatoon 3 news again, and only ever hearing Splatoon players complain about the lack of Splatoon 3 news. But here we are. All of our expectations thrown out of the window. Hello there, everybody. Welcome to an emergency session of Squid School. Doing a little bit of bonus tutoring here because, you know, the people who are making the game are very important to the community. And there are a few things I'd like to point out about how they're playing their new game. So we're going to be going through this trailer, and I'm going to go through it as slow as I darn well want to. I don't know, there's not really anything to do but to get started here. So, first of all, release date revealed. We can talk about that a little bit. The release date has been in question for a while. Like, they finally came out with, you know, summer 2022. And I guess September 9th is, like, technically still summer, right? I think you don't hit the equinox or solstice or whatever it is until later in September. I think that's how it works. But it's definitely on the back end of it, and it almost feels like, you know, everyone's expecting June, July, August, something like that, and then it ends up being September. It seems like the kind of thing that they would be completely willing to backpedal on if they needed to. Nintendo games have never been especially well known for sticking to their originally announced release date. Just ask Breath of the Wild 2 fans who are suffering out there. We feel for you. It could easily, you know, be pushed to 2023 for all I know. But this is kind of an interesting window for them to be putting it in, because I usually expect they're either going to put a big release in the summertime or they're going to put it right in October, where it'll be ideal for, like, purchases at Christmas or the winter holidays. So it's kind of like in between there. Maybe it's a little bit awkward, I think, for at least NA, because that's when kids are going back to school, and so they have a little bit less free time right at that exact moment. I don't know. Not much more to say on that except, hey, there's a release date now. Isn't that interesting? I wonder if it's going to hold. Release it late since their alpha testers need a lot of practice. I will be pointing out some things here where I will actually defend the choices being made by our players here. I think that there might be some moments where you'd be surprised. They're like, actually, they're doing really well. But we'll talk about it here. We'll talk about it. So, let's get this started. And let me know if, you know, sound is coming through right, if, you know, the balance is good. This video is generally pretty loud, so if it's overpowering me, just let me know in the chat, and, you know, maybe I'll see it. Who knows? I can explain that situation, Cactus. I think I actually know exactly what they were doing. And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. All right. Splatoon 3 hype day, exactly, Annie. All right. So first thing. Remind me, is it Ani or Annie? I actually am second-guessing myself on that one. So, apology. This is my little T-Tech. Fair, I'll put down the pitchfork. Okay, yeah, I mean, leave it nearby, because we may still need it, but the first way. So, Ani. Oh god, I can't remember now. It was like 45 whole seconds ago. My short-term memory isn't that good. Annie. Okay. Just like the standard, like, first name that people have in North America. Annie. Okay. I got this. Alrighty. So, first thing, they have these names, but they also have custom color schemes, and they have these little titles like they had for Splatfests. They used to, you know, give these kinds of things to players in Splatfests for, like, what the team was wearing, what synergies they had with each other, and it seems like people really liked that feature, and so they're bringing it back here. This seems like something that is not really tied to achievements, or if it is, it's just like, you've unlocked 3 new things to put over your tag, and, you know, maybe they're all aesthetic, or maybe there's some, you know, prestige ones, like you have a certain amount of paint with a weapon, or you hit the highest rank, or something like that, you know? We can only speculate at this point. Also interesting to note that they have these little numbers here, which is some kind of ID number, I guess. Maybe that's based on, like, so that you can have the same tag as someone else, but you also have this unique ID like you have on Discord. I don't know what that's about, but that's interesting to me. The backgrounds of these cards are only 2 colors. You get your background, and then if there's a pattern, you get 2 colors. So you can see there's 2 colors here, 2 colors here, 2 colors here. You only get 2 colors, and then there's the text color, which it seems to be a different one. So, really basic, and honestly, for a game that prides itself as much on aesthetic, it's like, it's nice, but it's not fresh. You know, it's not like blowing me away with the way that it looks visually. And in fact, it kind of clashes with the color scheme of the game sometimes. So, I don't know. I'm neither here nor there on it. It looks kind of just like random wallpaper to me. I do appreciate the names that they chose for the Yar Wall is great. Anemone #1. Veronica, which reference to Ica, Jamaica, the name of the lobby music. So there's some fun ones here. But Calamari? Okay. Anyway. So this is Turf War on the new map that they had on the previous trailer. But it's clearly been balanced considerably differently since the last time we saw it. So there is a lot to talk about there for map design people. I have a few thoughts about it, but I'm not... Obviously, everything is still in flux. Things are definitely 100%, 1,000% going to change from this trailer to the actual game. So I'm not thinking too hard about maps right now, because they're just all going to be different anyway. There may be some large-scale trends we can talk about, but otherwise. Okay, so we got the bow that they're showing off here, because everyone's excited about that. We've got the T-Tech, we've got an Octobrush, and we've got a bucket. And we've got a Viking horn helmet, which is very important. We've got a charger, a roller, and they exist, woo, and that's pretty much all there is to say about it. And 52 and the Vanilla Pro. So first things first, this spawn system. Something to note is that there's the little squid icon shows where your teammates are planning on jumping. And a lot of people pointed out, one of them is jumping over onto this grate right here. There doesn't seem, from what we can tell, to be a way to normally get up this grate once you've jumped. It seems like you can only get up here if you're super jumping, which would be a really interesting mechanic for the issue of stopping spawn camps, getting out of your base, for stopping lockout situations. The map is already really wide, and you have multiple ways out, so it's already pretty hard to stage a lockout, but this would give, especially long-ranged weapons, another place that they could stand to get vantage points where they literally cannot possibly be contested, unless I guess someone has a Zipcaster, and we'll talk about that. But I think the Zipcaster is absolute garbage right now. The in the state that it's in the game that we see here, I think it is worse than Splashdown. So we'll talk about that, but we haven't seen that yet. Now, it's worth noting that as soon as we go off this screen here, the graphics get considerably worse. So we've got, like, this footage, which is, like, well rendered. It's got all the shading, and it looks as detailed as it's going to be, and I'm not doing a great job of representing... Oh, okay, I guess the quality is just going to look like that for me. This does not look like 1080p for me on my end. Maybe it's better for you guys, but I want to just point out that, you know, the player models look different. The shading on the hair isn't quite there anymore. There's a lot that's fuzzier, that's more pixelated, that's just a little bit lower detail, less polished. You can look at like the weapon icons. They kind of just look like JPEGs copied and pasted over the top with maybe, well, okay, maybe not JPEGs because they got a little shading effect there, but they're a little bit lower res right now. So that tells us a little something about the state of the game right now, the level of polish that they've got it to. This is, as far as, you know, making a video game, they're pretty far along right now. Like, to have a functional build where you can show off this many weapons on a map and not have anything breaking, you know, this is actually a lot of progress that they have made towards a finished game. The last few bits are just final tweaks that they'll have to throw in there. Like, have you ever watched one of those videos of, like, the time lapse of a scene from storyboarding in an animated movie, I should say, from the storyboarding to the modeling with, like, no lighting or anything, to starting to light it and shade it until you get to, like, the final render? There's, like, 5 or 6 steps in that process. There's a lot that they have to do to get the game to this state, and so I'm not saying, like, oh god, this game isn't going to come out on time or anything like that. I mean, yeah, they could still delay it for any number of reasons, but I just want to point out this is not the final build of the game, so balance things can absolutely change. The maps are obviously changing. The kits that we're seeing on the weapons, I doubt are final. I have a feeling that that's going to be, like, that's a really quick thing for them to be able to tweak, I would imagine. I think it's just probably a couple of quick variables they have to swap around, and you can immediately put any sub on any weapon you really want to as a dev. So I feel like that's something where if they're doing any last second balancing, that's the kind of thing they're going to mess with. So there's a lot of this that isn't finished, and we need to recognize it's not finished, and we need to look at it and say, it's okay that this isn't finished. It's okay that this is still in alpha testing or whatever. Like, look at the game mechanics more than you look at the visuals. They're going to be these little pieces of polish missing that you don't even notice until they're not there anymore, and you can't quite put your finger on why they don't look as good or why it doesn't feel as satisfying to shoot this weapon. There are little things like that that are just going to be missing, and FLC's theory about why this is, which I really like, is that they made the decision to swap the Splatoon 3 and Xenoblade release dates, and we're immediately like, okay, well, we need something to show for Splatoon 3, so just to do some gameplay footage, I guess. There's, like, no editing in this trailer at all. There's so little video editing that went into this. This is clearly very, very quickly made. But I will say the alpha testers are actually doing a great job of showing off the game. There are some decisions that they will make, which again, I'm going to VOD review in a minute, that are decisions which are made to show off the game and not necessarily because they're trying to win the game. I think that's very important to recognize about this. It's like, yeah, they're probably a lot worse than a lot of us are in the chat at the video game, but they're also probably doing some things poorly artificially so that it's easier to see what's going on, especially for, you know, a casual player who trying to watch competitive Splatoon 2 is like, wait, where did that guy come from? What is that? Why is there so much ink on I can't see anything. It's very, very difficult, especially if you're watching the perspective of someone who's flicking the map open repeatedly. You know, it's hard to watch a competitive game a lot of the time. You have to, like, know the game pretty well before you can get to the level you can even watch it. And so they're not going to play at a competitive level even if they're capable of it. They're going to show off the game so that anybody can see it. So let's talk about these spawn points. This is a really, really long map. This is like Arowana Mall long. But to its credit, it is very wide as well. It's not like Arowana where the wide width of it is chopped up into these really nasty choke points. The whole thing, you could just kind of like walk from one wall to another in a lot of places on this map. So the width of the map is great. You know, the more square a map is versus rectangular, the more I like it, or circular. You know, humpback can stay too. The problems happen with, like, lockouts and really annoying difficulties getting back in from spawn. Those happen when the map is too narrow. Think Walleye Warehouse's spawn. One person, one T-Tech, can lock out an entire spawn on that map. It's stupid. So the fact that they're widening things out, I think, shows a good understanding of the map design that they need. One thing that is a little concerning to me is the amount of time it's going to take you to get to mid. We haven't really kind of gotten to stress test how far away you can use this initial super jump to get. But from the camera angle that it gives you, from like right here where they're looking, like they're kind of moving it around in a circle, right? So you'd think that the radius is maybe only out about to like here. You can only get in like maybe the first quarter of the map. So my concern is like, is this the Moray Towers problem? I mean, there are many Moray Towers problems, but is this the one particular Moray Towers problem where it just takes too long to get out of spawn, to get to the part of the map that matters to control it? I would rather this be square than be as long and rectangular as it is, because the width is great, but the fact that it's going to take so long to get back into mid, I'm not sure I like that. And if there's no super jump system where you can jump to teammates, and I don't know if they've confirmed that. Have you guys seen like people super jumping to each other in any of these trailers? I don't know that that's a thing. And if that's not a thing, that's going to really, really emphasize that particular problem, that it takes so much longer to get to the part of the map that matters. One of the really cool ways about that system has worked in Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2 is that if you've got a push going and you get splatted, you can super jump into one of your teammates as long as they back up a little bit and let you back in. And you don't give up all of your map control just for going down. And you're able to get back into it. And that gave a lot of utility to backline players because they were going to take positions that were just safe to jump to by nature of them wanting to use their range. And so that gives the frontliners someone to jump into, because you don't want to jump into a T-Tech when they're flanking. You know, that's probably just going to get you killed on impact. But I worry that if they're going to make the maps longer but not give you a super jump, it's going to feel like trying to spawn into another shooter, a slower paced shooter. Think like Overwatch or Team Fortress 2. In those games, you spawn from a set location on the map, and if you're not at the front lines, you just have to walk all the way out. And part of you going down, and part of the problem with that, is that you're removed from play for a very long time, and the enemy team's going to be able to push pretty far from that. The way that they counteract that in those games, the way that they balance it, is by giving you a lot of health. But you don't have a lot of health in Splatoon. That's part of the fast-paced nature of the game. You go down really, really quickly, regardless of what weapon you have. There's no tank class. And there's no healing either, at least as far as we've seen so far. So if you go down really easily, and then it takes longer to get back to mid or to what matters, that's really punishing. That's not something that we want in the game. So I'm hoping that maybe this is just the way you start the game, and that maybe you can still super jump to teammates, or you can choose to super jump into spawn like this. I hope they don't get rid of that mechanic. But I don't know that we've seen evidence otherwise. Cooper's saying you can super jump. Super jump is taken out. I bet there will be a riot. I just haven't seen it, you know? Bab, I don't need to, like, eyeball it with this map. I know how it feels on Moray Towers. On Moray Towers, you know, falling all the way down from ledge to ledge to ledge, that probably takes about as much time as it's going to take for you to paint your way into mid on this map. So, I don't know. Anyway, all of that speculation aside, let's talk about what we can actually see. There's this... FLC pointed this out, and now I can't unsee it. Look at this little, like, float that happens right before they hit the ground. This is so awkward. It's, like, so unsatisfying in impact. This float right here, where all of a sudden they're just on their feet as if they're falling, like... I guess they're going from being an unplayable character to being a playable character in that moment, but it takes away all of the momentum of the jump and everything. It's a little weird. Also worth noting, these guys have a little white flash on the inside of them. Some have suggested that this looks like ink armor. Some have suggested that this is invincibility. But it's clearly an anti-spawn camping mechanic. So every time that you're jumping in that particular manner, you're going to have some protection. My thought is that this is probably actually invincibility, because you get this sort of white circle on you when you do the squid roll, when you do the little dash mechanic. And that is clearly a parry. They give you the sound of being impervious to damage when that makes contact with something. So I think you're actually invincible for the first couple seconds out of spawn. And the invincibility's gone right now, so you're not going to get very far with that. But, and maybe that's a reason why they're not letting you super jump all the way back in, so that you don't, you know, just take that invincibility and land in their base with it or something. I don't know. And maybe it is two different mechanics. Hard to say. Still, that's worth noting. So we're painting up here, and not the most efficient painting. Like, a lot of these shots are overlapping with previous shots. You really want to be moving a little bit harder left or right, or aiming in a circle instead of the way that they're painting here. So a little bit of a painting efficiency thing, and that's one of the big clues as to what level of players you're looking at, is how do they paint? How efficiently, how quickly do they get the paint on the ground that they need and move on? Because if you're painting over something that you've already painted before, you're not getting special charges fast. A lot of to-do is being made about the 52 having wall again. So this is another K52 kind of situation. Like, that's most of the kit that the K52 had. It does have wail, though, which looks like a considerably weaker special to me than Ray, or maybe even Killer Whale. I don't know, hard to say with Killer Whale. I didn't play Splatoon 1 enough to be able to say on that, but again, kits probably could just change completely, so I'm not going to make too much of a to-do about that. I'm just going to talk about the individual pieces of the kit rather than the kit holistically. All right, so clearly 52 is looking on either side of the pillow here, and the brush just kind of decides to expose themselves on the left a little bit. Not the wisest decision. They probably could have used the cover backed up or something. The 52 has a really good vantage point on the brush from here, so if they're going to try and go somewhere, they probably want to be running with the brush down and trying to serpentine around. They want to get behind this cover, but standing outside of cover and painting it, you're too immobile as a brush. You're going to get shot down for that. And they do, in fact, miss a couple of shots, but they're still able to get it here. So now, what I don't agree with that the 52 does here is that there is a player with the brush who's, like, shooting over here and is clearly looking at mid and will see all of this happening. Like, why are you turning your back to them? This guy is right here. They could just, like, rush at you as soon as they see you're doing anything else. I guess maybe you've got like a charger up here or something, and so they're worried about that, but like, yeah, you gotta be careful. You don't know where they are now either. They could be right on the other side of the pillow for all you know. But we leave that fight behind and we head up to the bridge here. Backseating the bots. These aren't bots. Come on. I'm checking chat sporadically, so apologies if I do miss something here. In order to have it set up the way that I do, for the aspect ratio to be correct and everything, I would need a second monitor to be checking chat, and I don't have that right now. So if I do miss something, then that would be why. Okay, so here we get to a very weird part of this game. First of all, I think the bow just like missed or something and hit the floor. Maybe they were trying to hit this person. Oh, okay. They're probably aiming at this person down here, but missed and just hit the floor in front of them. Okay. This thing. This is a sub that we haven't seen before. Right here. It's making the point sensor noise, and it's doing point sensor sort of things. But we'll see it later on. It's a straight line ability that hits a single target. So that part is already worse than point sensor, which was AoE and could be lobbed up over obstacles. And then it looks like maybe it does some damage, but it clearly doesn't do a lot. And the other thing that's really baffling about this is that it creates this big solid line between you and the player who's marked. So it's not just you have this information, it's they know where you threw this from. And like, look at this right now. See that big line pointing directly to an enemy teammate? This is marking both players. This is like mutually assured destruction. This isn't an advantage for you to hit someone with. This is like, you're giving away both of your positions. If I go down, I'm taking you with me. And this player above us does not go down. The player who threw the thing goes down. So if that sub is going to be in the slightest bit useful, it needs to have something else going for it. It can't just do like 30 damage and mark both players. That's so trash. It needs to have some like secondary effect. Like FLC was suggesting maybe it increases the range that shots will hit you at, or maybe if you fire shots, they'll just hit the other guy, or like maybe it increases damage taken for that guy, or, you know, there's got to be some kind of thing that it does to that player, because point sensor is already not a great sub, and to nerf it that badly without giving it something more in return, that's a yikes. So anyway, that's one of the more baffling parts of this trailer. Like, we just do not get enough information about that sub. And it's the kind of thing where I would hope, you know, as the marketing team, they would see, oh, hey, it might not be super clear what that thing does. Let's clear that up and put that into the Splatoon, the Squid Research Lab Twitter or something like that. But we didn't get any information about it there either. There's also another special that they introduce in this trailer, and we didn't see anything about that. So that's a big question mark in my head, what the heck that's about. Anyway. So we've got the triple inkzooka kind of thing, or inkzooka. It looks, you know, like a pretty solid kill confirm here. Again, you probably have to hit with like multiple of the projectiles to get the splat, but it looks like they're pretty big and they're rotating, so it's kind of like you're pretty likely to get it. And if you don't get it on the first shot, they're pretty well damaged and their feet are painted and stuff. One very weird thing about this that I feel like should probably change is that you'll see right here, it doesn't actually paint your feet or paint in front of you at all. It's like an Slosher, except you don't even get that tiny little excuse of a trail that the Slosher has behind it. It's just completely blue in front of where this just got fired. It's like you're throwing a burst bomb. It does not paint underneath it at all. And if that remains the case, then this has a lot less aggressive movement potential. Like, you become a turret, basically, once you grab this, and it paints a lot around that radius, so I wouldn't say that you're, like, taking your paint out of the match entirely. Like, you're not throwing, if you pop this special during splat zones when you're trying to contest the zone, you probably could just, like, use it to zone people off the zone. But you're not going to be able to move in with it either. You need to be, like, popping this from a safe distance. This is kind of like a mid-range special. It's not a panic special by any means, I don't think. So, I mean, I guess panic special, it's probably going to take longer to pop out than it would be to just use your main weapon to finish the fight for most weapons. So that's my thinking on it. I mean, if they give it a nice big hitbox like this, I think it definitely has a place. I think it definitely has a use. It's not a bad special at all. Looks pretty decent. But it's really weird that, unlike, you know, so many other things, it doesn't paint the floor in front of you. And maybe that changes with alpha testing too. I don't know. Maybe they just didn't put that feature in yet. Check chat really quick. It's called a trizooka. Okay. Thank you, Bab. All right, so this, I assume, is the situation we're talking about, where they're pushing a charger in a bad way. Now, if they're playing this game to win, yes, this is an absolutely abysmal play. They just walk out from cover. They're looking right at the laser. Red flags going off in my head the whole way through. But think about it like this. This is staged to show off the bubble and what the bubble does. If he gets sniped before he gets close enough to shoot the bubble, I think this is she, actually. I think that's just the short bob haircut. If she gets close enough to shoot the bubble, then we get to, hear the sound effect of the bubble and kind of figure out what the bubble does. But if the charger snipes them before they get here, then we don't get to see the bubble. Now, I need to remember what the frame by frame is on this. There we go. Okay. So yeah, it's worth noting the bubble actually shrinks right here in these couple frames. Right there. You see it got smaller and there's a little flash indicating that. I think this clip here proves that the way the bubble works is that shooting the bubble completely negates damage and nothing happens. Shooting the top of the bubble makes the bubble shrink. And we do see later on when the bow starts trying, at least, to shoot the top of it, that it's taking damage while the rest of it isn't. It is a little strange that the shot sound that you get for it is the sound that you get when you're hitting a splash wall, because splash walls are destructible. Like sprinklers too. Sprinklers are destructible, and it's that same sound that's being used. Normally, when something is impervious to damage, you get the like ping 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 kind of sound that you get when you shoot someone who has like booyah armor. So it's interesting that was the sound that was being made. Maybe maybe the bubble can be shot, and it's just a matter of you have to shoot it a certain number of times, hit a certain threshold to get it to shrink, and maybe the top point is a weak point. I don't know. But you can clearly have some counterplay to it, but it is clearly also a solid defensive option if you really need to defend a certain point. And we've also proven that the charger can shoot through the bubble now. So that demonstration that I can't shoot through the bubble, but someone on the other side of the bubble can shoot through to me, that is probably what this dev is doing here. They're just kind of holding forward and getting shot that way to demonstrate that concept. That's the defense that I'm going to make of it for them. Another thing to talk about is that they are walking and shooting. And normally, we talk about that's probably not a great idea. But again, remember, this is a trailer. This is going to be a casual audience who is not used to watching people go bloop, 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 and appear in various places on the map, seeing nothing but this little splotch of ink, this little indent in the ground. And so part of that is probably actually to show people what the game looks like better than you would in watching competitive play. So those are the defenses I'm going to make with this play. If you're actually trying to play to win, though, that was a terrible idea. All right, so this is the first shot that we get of the new special, which was completely unannounced and we have not seen coming at all. When they first popped this, I was like, oh crap, is Stingray back in the game? Because, like, look at this. You've got the same sound effect that you get when you launch a Stingray. You get this thing on your back, you've got this big gun, but then it's a vacuum cleaner. It's like we're playing Luigi's Mansion. And any ink that the enemy shoots into this gets sucked up and charges up your tank. And because we can see on the back, this level of the ink inside the tank is rising when a shot gets pulled into it. So the counterplay to this is literally just never to shoot at it. But the thing is, in the trailer, they're going to shoot at it because they have to show off what the heck it does. So this is a really solid, like, defensive option because it just completely stifles their ability to push you offensively on your team. But this definitely has some drawbacks. First of all, The shot that comes out afterward clearly gets charged up. And that can't be the fully charged shot. It wasn't fully charged on their back, and this does look kind of wimpy. It is a one shot, which is neat, but it's also relatively small and has to be aimed. I imagine once you fully charge that, it's going to be bigger and more impressive. But also, the counterplay to it is don't shoot at the guy who's trying to suck your ink up. And then what is like my question going into this for, you know, how it's balanced is what is the minimum amount of benefit you get after the suction part is done? Do you still one-shot them? If they don't shoot at you at all, you just have nothing and you get ganked as soon as the special ends? Like, I'm very curious how that part works. It's like, this will be good for countering opposing specials. Like if someone has a bomb rush and they're trying to walk forward towards your team with it, you just activate this, delete their bomb rush, and shoot right back at them. Like that is a great counter move. If they're trying to paint the zone and you have the ability to get onto the zone, you just pop that special, stop them from painting the zone completely. Your team caps the zone behind you, and there's like no counterplay for them for that unless they Inkstrike you or something. So there's some interesting utility to that, but it's also not broken, and it has the potential to actually be relatively weak depending on things like, can you flank this? Like how far from the side, what angle can you hit this from? It depends on what weapons you put this on, because like putting this on a charger might be terrible. We see it on a charger here, but like the charger has to get in front of their entire team for this to really be helping someone. So like if they can't get in front of their team, if they're not a weapon that wants to do that, then when do you ever use this? So those are all some thoughts about it. Very interesting concept, very cool, very unique. We can't really say anything about how it's balanced, though, until the actual game comes out and we see how it's going to work in practice. All right, so now we get to see the bow. First of all, interesting theory to throw out there. FLC believes that this is not Toxic Mist, but a disruptor, a Splatoon 1 disruptor. Make of that what you will. I have no evidence to make an argument one way or the other on that. Oh my god, chat, scroll for me. Thank you. Okay. So, the bow. The bow is the definite loser of the weapons that we see in this game. There's a part of this trailer where they basically get a direct horizontal shot on someone, and the explosion hits them, and it doesn't one-shot them. Like, this weapon does a pitiful amount of damage considering how slow it is, how little it paints. Like, we'll see another shot. I think we see a shot right here. This shot right here is like a full, that's a bow shot right there. It did not paint a trail at all between the player and the bow, the shot itself. Did it get shot off the ground? Hold on. I don't think I noticed that before. This player didn't just shoot the... I think it just exploded on its own, right? Yeah, he's shooting at the back wall. Okay. Scared me for a second. So this is the explosion. It didn't add any ink to this. It's like... the amount of ink that you got out of the bow just now from that one shot is like one splatter shot bullet that painted your feet. That's it. And this is such a slow weapon. You see like such a low fire rate on it. It doesn't kill with that one shot. It's so bad for so many reasons. Not enough damage output. The range is mediocre compared to something like Charger. The Charger is 100% going to outpaint it easily. What does it have going for it? The shot spread is, I guess, going to be nice for people who don't hit shots as much. That's going to be kind of like the the new player's weapon where they don't have to aim as much and they'll still hit some shots, kind of like just walking forward with akimbo dapple dualies instead of rolling with them, you know. But like, it's just bad right now. I can't see anything good about it. That little burst of damage doesn't do an awful lot to someone when they get hit with it later on. Like, I think the bow is trash in its current state. Definitely needs to be tuned way up if it's going to be competitive with anything else we're seeing in this trailer. Outclassed by even splatlings? Splatlings are fine. This weapon is just non-functional. It does not do anything. We see a shot with only 2 arrows. Actually, I think what happens in that shot, and I'll show it to you later, what I think we're actually seeing. I think we see them fire the horizontal one, and one of the shots hits a piece of cover before it gets to that player. So we'll talk about that. So they paint the guy's feet, and they miss him with the direct, but the extra explosion does tap them here, and then they get the direct, and that kills. It might be that they're also getting hit by the player down here. Yeah, it's possible that like one of the shots from the, I think, splatter shot down here also hits them. But yeah, that's not a lot of damage for a weapon that's that slow. And also, yeah, like that's gonna happen to you. A charger is a single line of fire that one-shots you. If you're competing with that as this weapon, like, I don't know what you're supposed to do about that. Like, you could probably fire the killer whale at this charger, and they would be able to snipe you and still move out of the way of the killer whale in time. So, does the brush need special still at this point? No, they've got special. I don't know why they're spending extra time painting this corner. That's only going to give them away to anyone above them, if anything. It's killing a little bit of time here. But let's talk about Zipcaster, because I think this is the other really... Okay, there's a sub, a main, and a special that I think are the really big losers of this trailer. I think the Zipcaster is the loser that's the special. The sub is definitely that point sensor dart thing. And then the weapon is the bow. But the Zipcaster is looking extremely unimpressive to me. And let's talk about why. So first of all, he pops it, and you can look at the upper right and see the special as it depletes. So you can see, like, what is it that causes this to go down? Is it just a set amount of time like it is with the Ink Storm? Does it go away right away like it does with missiles? So let's watch that for a second. So there's a big jump. You lose like 3 bars of it whenever you actually cast a line out there. So that's one piece of it. You also notice that every like half a second or something, you're losing another bar. Like it's just passively decreasing by a lot. So they use it here to the wall and then use it from there to get to the pole. There's question of whether, like, could you just hit the pole from right here, or did they actually not have the range to do that? Like, is this short-ranged enough that you need to go from to the wall first? It might also be tactical, you know, that you'd want to go to the wall first so that you're coming in at more of a flank. At least that's the theory. In practice, this is a terrible plan, and we'll talk about why in just a second. But, so... if you need to use, you know, multiple zipcasts to get places, that is going to drastically nerf the special, because every time you cast it, you're losing a whole bunch of that special charge, and you're able to stay in this state for less time. So, let's talk about this charger. This charger had this big neon sign that got painted off to their right, and it's not even, like, that far to the side of them or anything. This is something they should just normally see while surveying the map. Why are they aiming across here? There's nobody on the other side of the bridge. It's all painted blue. Like, they have no worries in this part of the map. This is what they should already be looking at. an X-Rank Charger player, they see this Zipcast line, the dude pops off the Zipcast line and gets sniped before they can fire another one. They fire another one. The Charger still doesn't move. They land. They miss a shot in front of the Charger. The Charger still doesn't move. So, yeah, like, if you're showing the game off, this looks like a really cool concept that you can zip line all around the map and get all these cool flanks off and stuff. But, like, look at how much special charge this player has now. They cannot get another pick in time. They literally... There's no way that they splat anybody right now. They could swim and make a beeline straight for this player. They could zipcast right to their feet, and even if this player doesn't shoot them down, doesn't just pre-fire the obvious angle that they're going to be coming at and take them out before they get there. If this player just stands stock still, this player cannot get within range to splat a second person using the special. The absolute maximum that they get with this special is one pick, unless there are multiple people stacked right on top of each other. In which case, you're still just going in with your main weapon, and you can't use your sub. It doesn't seem. So, like, why would you want to use this? You're putting yourself at a huge risk. You're putting a big neon sign out there, this arm, that, hey, I'm about to be in this exact location, shoot me here. You're moving in a straight line to it, so it's the easiest thing in the world to pre-fire. Like, this is so much easier to shoot down than a splashdown. Splashdown is relatively technical to shoot out of the sky. There are going to be B-rank players who are canceling Zipcasters if this is the state that it's in at launch, and, like, doing it by accident, just because they're painting the map. Like, this is so incredibly bad right now. And again, like, the maximum benefit you get is one pick that you might not have been able to get otherwise. It doesn't let you paint that much. Like, one suggestion that FLC had for how you might be able to use this is you zipcast behind the enemy team and paint behind them so that they don't have escape routes as your team starts to push in at them. And then they try to turn around and run away and get stuck, and they're sitting ducks. That would be really cool. But you don't have time to do that. Like, they try to get a second one off here, and they can't even get a single bit of paint there with a quarter of the special charge up. So, like, maybe they buff the duration, okay? Maybe they make it so you've got a good, like, 10 seconds to be around the back of the enemy team before you get jumped back or something like that. But the longer they make the duration, the riskier the move is going to be, because the longer you're going to be behind enemy lines. So I don't know if that's even a good thing for it. But, like, it needs something. Maybe you're invincible the entire duration of the zipcast, and maybe there's... Even if there's just this one window of vulnerability when you jump off the wall or something, you're still going to get shot out of that by X-rank players. It's still going to be very vulnerable every single time you use it. So it's like... I don't get it. It just seems really bad. It's Inkjet and all of the problems that Inkjet has amplified, but without the bazooka that one-shots people and has really long AoE damage, long-range AoE damage. It seems terrible to me. So anybody seeing, like, a splashdown's easier to hit because the position is always the same no matter where you are. The position for this is going to be, like, as soon as you see exactly where that arm connects, you just shoot at the tip of that arm. That's the first thing that's going to happen before they even launch off the ground. And you just shoot at that point, like right here. The Charger should already be seeing this and already be shifting their aim over here. If I'm a splattershot player, I can easily be shooting at this point like 2 or 3 times before the player even gets to that spot. They just give me a target right here on the wall. It's so easy to see. And it's so, like, perfectly aligned with where they're right about to be. And look at the hang time on the end of it before they can fire it. I hope that that's just the player taking their time to line up the next zipcast and not the actual amount of lag time that you have before you can fire it again. Because if you're vulnerable that whole time, like, again, you're just a sitting duck. So, yeah. I think this is by far the worst special that we have seen in Splatoon 3. Okay, Crab Tank. Crab Tank looks really cool. I like this special a lot. That moment right there confirms that you can take damage pretty easily while in Crab Tank. This is, I think, the bow that hits it, so it has a little bit of an arcing shot, I guess, but it's the direct damage from the bow that hits them, from the front. So the player can still be hit by things, for sure. And so here we see they got directed by the shot, because there are only like 1 or 2 shots that land on the ground behind them, so one of them hit them. And then the explosion hits them, and it still doesn't one-shot them. So, bow, boo. Not in great shape right now. But, so we've got this really long-ranged, like, kind of dualies fire that come out from the front. So these shots, they're going left and right like dualies, and they're relatively slow fire rate, but the long range and the painting power, I feel like, make up for that pretty well. It's kind of like a buffed-up CDS shots that we're seeing there. So that's pretty solid, and like, look at the paint. The paint is really solid. It paints out in front of it like this. So this is totally a special that you could use to like retake the zone in Splat zones. And it's got this big explo kind of shot that it can fire out there as well at the same time. Also, really interesting point that FLC showed me here. Look at what happens when the ball rolls up. So they're healing. The healing accelerates when they go into ball form. It's just like how when you go into squid form, you heal more. When you go into ball form in the crab tank, you heal. So you could just be like a baller, basically, and roll up and be invincible and also be healing yourself. But then, all of a sudden, unlike the baller, you don't have to sacrifice the entire special to start shooting again, to start, being a threat on the map again. There's so much utility to this. There's so many cool ideas for how to use this. And it's not broken either, because you can just shoot the guy, A good charger player who can hit the headshot or whatever, you still have to really be worried about that. And you still have to position it carefully. For example, the big explo shot kind of thing. If you're trying to shoot that uphill, that's going to be really hard to hit someone with. You kind of have to get the fall off angle or something like that. It's not super great in that position. It's much better in a position like this up here with high ground, where it can shoot down over cover or something like that. So I think this is really neat. I like this special design a lot. I think there's a lot that people are going to be able to do with it. This is pretty cool. They make you think that it's going to explode or something, when it ends, and then it just poof, it's gone. I wonder if maybe there's a little bit of invincibility during the transformation, just so that you can get back into squid form and start acting again while people are trying to punish you. I don't know. Maybe there's actually a hitbox at the end of that in case someone's standing right on top of you. I don't know. But that's neat to me. Wish it exploded. That would be hilarious, but reminds me of that on my personal stream. I was just playing Elden Ring, and there's a healing item that you can mix together where you put in different ingredients and you get different effects. So some of them heal you, some of them give you a shield. One of them just makes you explode. It just does damage to you, and you pop up into the air in a big explosion, and it damages. It's so pointless, and it's hilarious to me. And I just love little goofy things like that, where your character gets cartoonishly bopped around for no reason. Okay, let's keep going. So I'd like to talk about the painting pattern once again. Painting over the side here, awesome, because this is all enemy territory. But then they just decide to paint the bridge. You know how much you painted? You painted from here around to here with all of those shots. That's so inefficient. Paint the enemy color, enemy ink, not your own bridge that you already control completely. So here, you gotta think as the player who's pushing forward. If someone's gonna come at me, what direction are they gonna come from? Well, they're not gonna come from here, because I would have seen that already, right? And if they're long-ranged enough to be up here in the first place, they're probably already going to be taking shots at me before they get over to this area or anything like that. So if I'm worried about another player going to be coming up, it's going to be coming up from the back wall. And so this is what I'm looking at to make sure that, you know, nobody's going to aggress me. This and way over here, which we can't see because of spectator cam, if nothing else. So when this player comes up and the player isn't ready for them, it doesn't have their aim set on this location. Like, this is also optimal painting. Like, if you're trying to paint this area to be able to push into it, you want to be doing lines from here across. So they should already be aiming over in this direction instead of in the bottom corner like this, like they are. This shouldn't catch them off guard this badly. They overcorrect on their aim, and then they just decide to disengage, and they're like, oh, wait, hey, this player is just standing still. I should keep shooting at them again. And, yeah, that doesn't really work out there. They definitely could have had the pick. This player, well, okay, they're using a bow, so maybe they couldn't have the pick because their weapon doesn't do enough damage fast enough. But with most good weapons, they probably could have gotten the pick first. But then this player could have gotten the pick once they missed. So just a lot of, like, confusion. They kind of, like, bumped into each other in a dark alley, and they're blundering in opposite directions now. Like, oh, shoot, this is bad guy. What do I do? Here we see this sub-weapon again, and again, what the heck is this thing doing? Like, they miss, so we don't really get to see what's going on. But again, look at the trail that it leaves. Even if you miss, this is marking your location. This is an arrow to your opponents saying, hey, shoot here. Shoot at the end of this line. Like, somebody suggested that maybe it's kind of like a tripwire, where if your enemy walks past the tripwire, they get marked then. If so, it's not doing a great job because it's not out there for very long. Like, so they throw it right here, and the bow just stands for like an extra half a second over here and then walks back toward it. So I think it's gone before the bow player actually makes contact, so we can't really confirm or deny that theory, but like, there's got to be something more to it that we're just not seeing here. And so now this player, I guess, just decides to give up on pushing the bow or doing anything about them. The bow should still be a threat if it were a good weapon. Like, it is able to hit shots over here. But hilariously, the pro just doesn't seem all of that concerned by getting hit by the bow, and understandably so. And they just kind of keep doing what they were doing. So now I go back down here, and we get our first really good look at how the new killer whale works in action. So first thing to note, it follows the player character for a short period of time. Like, they activate it, and then they move, and it moves with them until it starts shooting. So now it's starting to shoot, and you see only some of the speakers are moving with it. So I think it activates, like, the two top ones, and then the two middle ones, and then the two bottom ones. So, like, they're setting the position of the two top ones, then moving over here to set the position of the two bottom ones, and then the two middle ones, and then the two bottom ones activate after that. Also worth noting, they do have separate tracking, so it looks like they move in pairs, where each pair moves in the same direction at the same rate. But they're all picking different targets. So the middle ones, I think, are targeting the guy on the right, while the top ones are targeting the guy on the left, and the bottom ones are going straight through the middle. Also worth noting there that I think there's got to be something a little bugged or not quite there yet with the hitboxes on these things, unless they're like, maybe they only do damage on the initial firing and they don't actually like stay out there and maintain for long. But then why would they track someone? Why would they move left or right? Because like this player walks straight through this laser and they don't take damage, I don't think. Yeah, I think all of the like paint that you have on the corners of the screen is just because they're on enemy ink. And there's a very clear place later on where the laser should be taking the Inkling's head off, you know, and it's just not doing any damage at all. So I don't know if there's something bugged about the hitboxes or if they're just very short acting hitboxes. something's not working the way that you visually expect that special to be working like. So I expect that once that's fixed up, the balancing will be a lot more intact. Something that's worth noting about this that's really cool, though, is that because these lasers are hitting from different angles, it's actually very hard to dodge to the side of this. You've got a cone in front of you that you can't advance into, and a cone behind you, because all of these lines intersect each other and create the same kind of cone out behind you. So you have to move, like, directly sideways. This is going to force people out from behind cover really well. Like, if you know someone's behind a pillow like this, and you fire this, they are forced completely out into the open, which is really cool. This is probably my favorite special that I've seen so far. I think that this is really super well designed and also very fun and satisfying to use. This is a modification to the Splatoon 1 Inkstrike. You throw one of these little balloon things, and wherever it lands becomes the site of a mini Inkstrike. It's not as big as it was in Splatoon 1, but you can throw 3 of them pretty quickly, too. And they still do a pretty sizable big, like, column of doom. That just seems really satisfying to me, and also that's going to be super useful for zoning. You know, this is the new Booyah Bomb, I think, and it's faster than Booyah Bomb. You've got a position you don't want people behind, just chuck that there. They're gone. They either move or they're going to get splatted. I think this is the other really cool thing about this is that look at how when they throw the third one, look at the special gauge. As soon as they throw the third one, special gauge is emptied. They're getting their main weapon back out, and they slosh again before even, like, the second one is finished firing. So, like, this is very similar to missiles in Splatoon 2, in that you can charge it, you can launch it, and launch it pretty quickly, and then use it even as an aggressive weapon to go in and capitalize on the disruption that you've caused. You're able to use this thing but not have to, like, back all the way up to be able to use it. It's not like a Stingray where you have to get all the way back to your spawn to possibly be safe using it. And an advantage that it has over Splatoon 2 Inkstorm is that the Inkstorm, while it's out, is like your special gauge is just slowly going down. You can't get extra special charge while your special is active. You're basically committing to 8 seconds of not being able to charge your special back up. And so special output on Inkstorm is way, way slower than it is on something like missiles. And that's why missiles are outperforming it for most niches right now. So this special has that same benefit of the Tenta missiles, where as soon as you pop it and use it, it's done. And you can go back to using your main weapon relatively quickly compared to other specials. I really like that effective killer whale as well. Like, with the killer whale splat that the player gets right here, one of the pieces of damage they do to this guy is actually a 52 gal shot right there. So that also speaks to the fact that this special doesn't seem to do a lot of damage, or does it really weirdly, because this player was like one shot already, and it still took like 3 of them converging on the player to take them out. I don't know how I feel about that. There's definitely some visual flair, some hitbox adjustment that needs to be made to the killer whale right now, but we at least get to see how it's going to be tracking and how it's deployed, which is definitely good to know. So those players right there, you know, they were just trying to show off the special, make it look a little cooler, you know? They just kind of stuck around like, oh no, woe is me, I can't possibly get away from this. So that's what they were there for, you know? They're just making sure that the special feels a little powerful. That's what they were doing. Definitely not just failing to paint their feet and get out of there. The Slosher hitbox looks a little bit different, and maybe it's just visually that it looks different. It's definitely skinnier, and maybe this is more reflective of what the hitbox actually is for it, but maybe they've nerfed the back end of it or something. I don't know. Hard to say. I shouldn't say the back end. Maybe they've nerfed like the leading hitbox of it, so it's a little bit smaller. Okay. So here we get to actually see the bubble shield being depleted. The bow is deliberately aiming at the top here, I think, and they are decreasing the size of it. Now, again, we're seeing like the bow has a direct shot and then it has the explosion hitbox afterward. It looks like the explosion hitbox just isn't doing anything against the shield there. It looks like it's eating up the missiles when the missiles hit it, which is another L for the bow. So maybe it's just not able to do max damage. Maybe they're also like not hitting direct shots. Maybe they're missing, but it didn't look like it was decreasing the bubble shield very quickly. I would like to see something like a splatter shot shooting at it so that we get a more consistent understanding of how quickly it goes, how quickly it goes down. So we have, weapon with a faster fire rate that can get a more consistent stream of damage, even if their aim is off a little bit at the beginning. Like, if you're a charger and you get all that time to hit this shot on this player should go down. Why would you choose a bow in this position instead of a charger? Like, what is the advantage that they have? They actually, I think, get, like, either an indirect or a near direct shot right here. Okay. Actually, they do miss him. And it's worth noting, some of those shots fell over the ledge. That's why we only see one here. And then this shot right here. This was why people thought that it can fire just 2 shots. But look, there's one on the back of the pole. So the horizontal shot, part of it got blocked by this pole. The other 2 made it around the corner. And he's just taking so little damage from like 3 bow shots that were like right in about the correct direction. It's like you're throwing crayons at them or something. I don't know. It just doesn't seem good. So this angle that they take on the splatter shot here, you see that the player is here already. You can see their shots going down on the left-hand side. If you're going to take this engagement, you want to back up a little bit and be able to use your range. If you peek over the top of this ledge so that only the top half of you is showing, but you can still hit your shots, you've got a great, big target to hit them, and they can only hit half of you. So it's kind of like a vertical version of right side peek advantage that you can get from using range advantage, or not range advantage, height advantage down a ramp like this. Instead, they kind of drop onto the ramp, and so they're entirely visible. In fact, if anything, they're probably a bigger target because you can hit like the underside of them as this player. So like they're an even bigger target now for having dropped where they did. They should have backed up a little bit and tried to use the ledge for cover. And also, recognizing that this is a shooter, the only shooter on their team is the splatter shot, and that you outrange the splatter shot, you should be putting yourself in a position to use that range advantage against them. So this is a very poorly positioned fight for the pro here. So 52, where's the 52 coming from? Okay, 52's in the same spot. 52 should be doing the same thing I was just saying. When they drop down here and surrender height advantage, I mean, maybe they're worried about this guy, I guess? They could have just gone backwards, kept the height advantage. Like, make this guy push uphill at you. Now you're just on a level playing field. Sure, if they just splatter shot, you still beat them like that. But, I don't know. They could have taken that a little better. But one thing that they are showing off here is the squid roll, and I think this has been shown before, but it bears repeating. This is a Dark Souls roll. All of you guys who have been playing Elden Ring prior to the release of this game, you guys are in luck because the exact same skill that you are developing rolling through boss attacks going to help you out in Splatoon 3. Check this out. So from right about here, we can see that white ball in the center of them again that we talked about at the very beginning. And this white ball stays active over the top of them, and they tank a shot right here. That shot hits right there. And you hear just the sound of ink pinging off of, like, booyah armor. This player doesn't take any damage. You can see on the edges of their screen, like, it doesn't change as they get hit. they had this damage before just from being on enemy ink. There's the little ping sound. So this is a parry, basically. This is... Let's count how many frames they have of invincibility here. Okay. So, assuming that they, like, from right here where we see the white circle form for the first time, they have invincibility on this. Let's see what the startup is like. So here they're just in the ink, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And maybe it's only as soon as they, like, jump out of the ink, but I don't know. I feel like this is right from when they activate the move. 15, 16. Okay, and it's gone now. So you've got, like, almost a quarter of a second of invincibility at the beginning of that dash. So my question would be, can you use this to completely stuff a charger? You know, the charger takes a really long time to charge back up. If you were to guess pretty well when the charger was actually going to fire and just squid roll, could you just, like, approach the charger by squid rolling at them? What about a blaster? If a blaster is just firing shots as soon as they possibly can, or at a rhythm that you can predict, can you just, like, tank those and just keep moving toward them and, like, never get hit by anything? Like, are Splatoon characters now just Dark Souls bosses? Because that's a huge nerf to slow firing weapons. That's tremendously bad for those kinds of weapons. Not only are these, you know, frontline weapons going to have a faster fire rate, they're also going to be able to approach you abusing your fire rate and be able to get shots on from closer up just by using this. Now, obviously, there is some vulnerability at the end of it, and so, you know, maybe you try to bait the squid roll out and punish that, but that's a really big change to the game, that there are just activatable iframes. And the amount of recovery time that's on that, the amount of startup time that's on that, whether I'm correct about how many iframes there actually are is going to matter a lot. But that could be really big and game-changing. We'll have to see how that plays out. Like, what if you've got an Inkstrike or, like, a Trizooka player shooting at you, and you just, like, armor through it? You just parry it. Like, are there going to be some things that are unparryable? Is that how they're going to do it? Like, you hit a certain damage threshold and the parry doesn't work anymore? I don't know. Could be crazy. All right, so here we have another Zipcast. And again, we've got a charger up here that easily could have just, like, aimed at the pole as soon as they saw the arm go out and shot this guy. All of this ink is going down. Like, they should even be hearing sound cues because ink is falling too close to them for comfort. Like, you get a sound cue that warns you that someone's painting nearby you, that, like, shots are just barely grazing you, whiffing on you. Charger should already have moved backwards, gotten their aim on the pole, and taken them out. But if they missed that shot, they could still be further back and be backing away and kiting this guy. And, like, if they're over here right now, what does the brush do? Maybe if they can throw a sub-weapon, they can throw, like, one suction bomb at them. But otherwise, they have this pull for cover, and that's it. Instead, they decide to go over here to this completely useless area, and look at how little they're able to paint it. They get this much paint off before they get flung back to their starting point. And so here we see the counterplay to the killer whale. I think there were probably some people who were worried, like, oh, is the tracking completely overpowered? Obviously not. Look at this right here. So we're going to go frame by frame for a second. This player gets completely bisected by the killer whale. So either... Did they do a roll before this? Okay, one sec. I need to back up a little bit more. So that's a jump. That's a squid roll. No, they just stood up. So, like, something's going wrong with the hitboxes there. I don't really understand why there's no damage at all or hit marker or anything. They're just clipping through each other and nothing's happening. Here's a situation where, again, the alpha testers here are not playing badly necessarily. I think what they're doing here is trying to show off what this special does. Because we've seen what this special does from the perspective of someone using it, but we haven't seen what it does from the perspective of someone playing against it and shooting into it. So if you shoot into it, you get this new kind of sound effect. It's a combination of the like ping sound that this is doing no damage, but also this like sucking sound, like the splotch of ink is being absorbed into the tank over here. So really, really good sound design based on the previous games to give you a great understanding of what's going on. And I think the player is just continuously firing at it so that people who are watching can understand that, yeah, these shots are being ineffective. Because at this point, what this player should really be doing is focusing on the roller who's over here on their left. At this point, you know, you see this big visual cue in front of you that says, hey, do not shoot here or else I will be able to do things with that. If you're, you know, trying to win the game, you don't shoot at this. But if you're trying to show off the game, they did it perfectly. Now, okay, they're firing a lot of shots after the fact and should probably be noticing that they're missing and doing something different sooner. But credit where credit is due. They spot this curling bomb and they're like, oh, I know what that means. That means there's a roller here. And they don't quite hit all their shots. The roller should probably still get this if they just horizontal flick instead of going for this vertical flick and missing. But that's pretty solid counterplay. That is exactly the strategy that you want for the roller there. You throw off their aim a little bit. You know, anticipate them swinging and you take them out. Might have wanted to put a little bit more distance, I guess, between them and the roller as well. I don't know. The roller with the vertical flick does have better range, but it forces them to aim harder and makes it more dodgeable. So, I don't know. Overall, credit to the awareness and the ability to counteract that. Like, that shows a little bit of experience with the video game. So, kudos to them for that. All right. And ends up being relatively close, but I think it goes to a yellow team here. I just want to say, I was like looking forward to hearing the victory music and seeing what that's going to be like, and it rocks. I love it. Let's listen to this all the way through. Are they going Woomy? Are they chanting Woomy? Woomy, Woomy, Woomy. That's what's happening there, right? That has to be... Oh my god. That's so cool. The animations, the graphics in the background, the sound, all of that, super hype. I love it. We haven't seen the Lost one yet, and that's probably going to be, you know, depressing. But this is so cool. I like everything about this. Also, you'll notice that they've swapped in the higher res, like more detailed, more shaded textures. So it's like, I feel like we're not quite seeing the complete game from point A to point B. There might be some editing mixed in here or something, but or maybe just this part of the game is more complete. Anyway, very, very cool, and a very cool way to end it. 9/9, September 9th. That's when we're going to see the rest of that. Whew. Yeah, and the tags definitely work well there, I think. A little personal touch that you're able to put on the end screen instead of just the letters. So that's cool. Hope that they really make the tag system more robust in terms of the designs that are available. So I feel like that's somewhat limited from what we've seen, but gonna throw the first game so I can see it. There you go, Chilfen with the big brain strats. Yeah, so overall, there's a lot that's really promising there. There's a lot that I like. There is a lot that also has the potential still to completely break the game and be unbalanced. And we shouldn't be too afraid of that. because that's exactly what happened in Splatoon 2. At the beginning of Splatoon 2, the Slosher was basically the only relevant weapon, and teams were being composed of either 4 Sloshers or 3 Sloshers and a Rapid Blaster, which happened to be the best counter to the Slosher. So, like, that's probably, gonna happen very early on in the game. There's gonna be something that someone finds that's broken, and they're gonna patch it out in a week, and then we're gonna be like, okay, let's actually play the game and figure it out. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. There could be some kit combinations that are really insane or really, really terrible. They could completely overtune a special or two. So there are a lot of things that could go wrong early, but overall, I love the design philosophy. Things are just a little bit faster. You're not locked into animations super terribly. There's a lot of varied utility. Like, there are a lot of specials where it's like, here's a tool, you can use this in 7 different ways. Like the crab tank, I don't know how that's going to get used. Is that going to get used like a baller where you just roll into the enemy base? Is that a flanking tool that just keeps you safe on your way to the back line for a nasty flank behind them? Is that going to be used as a painting option? Is that going to be used to give range to weapons that don't have range normally so that they can pick off chargers or something? I don't know how that's going to get used. Zipcaster, I don't know how that can reasonably use, but let's say they buff it. There are a lot of possibilities. It's a mobility buff. So, what do you do with your movements? Do you use it aggressively? Do you use it defensively? Do you use it in a situation where you would definitely be dead otherwise, just to run away from them for a second so that your team has an extra 3 or 4 seconds to close in and protect your jump and keep you safe in that position? There are a lot of options, I think, that, there's one way to use a Stingray. No matter when you're using a Stingray, you're going to use it exactly the same way. It's to try and get a splat from way further back. That's about it. You use it on tower. That's the pinnacle of creativity with Stingray usage. You throw an Inkstorm. You have one variable, which is what direction do you throw it in, and then you're done with that. So I think these options that have a bunch of mobility mixed in, that give you, you can throw the Inkstrike here, here, and here, or here, here, and here, or you could just put it all at your feet, or, there's a lot more different ways to use things, which I think is really cool. They're bringing a whole bunch of the old favorite weapons back, which is great because they already have a good handle on how those weapons need to be balanced. It seems like it's in a pretty good place, and I will say, in general, I think the balance team has just overall gotten better at balancing as the lifespan of both games has gone on. Splatoon 1 had a lot of really weird unbalanced stuff. Splatoon 2 started with a lot of really weird unbalanced stuff, and it slowly got pared down, and the game is honestly in a pretty good state right now. I know, a lot of competitive players will say otherwise, that, K52 too good, the game is too slow, but, there are not many weapons that I can look at and say that is just unusable. There are niches for just about everything in the game. And that's really cool. So I think that they're going to be able to pull that off once they figure out what the hell they're doing with the stringer here. 'Cause that's just not looking good right now. Anyway, those are generally my thoughts on what we've seen there. The one other thing I think we can go and take a look at... shoot, I don't have it pulled up. One sec. Is it over here? No, it's not. Okay. There was this other 40-second video that was released. I think I saw FLC looking at it on the Japanese site, so I don't actually know what buttons you have to press to get to it. I don't read Japanese, and apparently he can a little bit better than I can. So there is this one 40-second video. It's vertical, and it has a little bit of extra footage in there that doesn't really reveal that much more than this trailer did. There's some footage of the roller rolling, so you can be like, oh my gosh, the rollers in this game? Even though you saw it in the trailer. I don't know. There's not too much more in that. But there's also a few tweets from the Inkling Performance Lab, or... that's... Never mind. What do they call it in The Nintendo advertisements. I might be confusing IPL, you know, with like the tournament organizers. Whatever. There's a little bit of extra information there. I don't think it reveals too much. Leave the crayon flinger alone. It's just you're just chucking crayons. You're like an angry toddler. That's what that weapon is. The angry toddler weapon. Is it annoying? Yes. But if you had a real weapon, could you beat it? Yes. Squid Research Lab and Inkling Performance Lab. Okay. Yeah. Easily confused. Thank you. Jamie says, "Oh, gem." So I'm presuming there's something more to what he's got to say there. It's spammable as missiles. It is very enjoying. Isn't very enjoyable as a backline, you mean? IPL officially Nindy approved. Oh, like they would ever do a thing like that. They'll maybe, you know, poach the head tournament organizers or something if somebody tells them, oh, hey, this TO knows what they're doing. It's amazing to me that they partnered with Panda Global, and maybe their view on all of this is shifting a little bit, but grassroots Nintendo, I have my opinions on how well those mix. So, Brella looks bigger on JP website. Cool. I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen the Brella footage, and I have been seeing some people posting that stuff on Twitter. So that's something that I can't comment on right now because I just haven't seen enough of it. But didn't show dualies. True. This might be a controversial take, but I would not be that upset if dualies did not return. I think it was very fun, but when you look at mechanically what happened, you know, what happened to the dualies later on and just kind of how they worked, I don't think the dodge roll really gave them that many advantages. I think a lot of the time it was more of a curse than a help because it takes away your accuracy unless you execute this technique, whereas shooter weapons just have that accuracy. They're very cool. You know, the satisfying feeling of hitting a dodge roll and then immediately getting your turret shots out and deleting someone. That's so sick. But it just doesn't have any like tactical utility, I don't think. Like it's just too much of a commitment. So having been someone who mained dualies for a while and moved off them, if they're not in Splatoon 3, I'm not crying about it. It's maybe a little disappointing for the players who liked them. Like there were some really unique ones, like CDS with its jump tech. The way that Glugas worked, where they did more damage if you rolled, was I think a really cool addition to them that maybe other dualies could try out. Like make you get rewarded even more for rolling. That could be neat, but I think overall the class ended up getting, you know, boxed out of all of their niches by just shooter weapons because they were simpler. They always have the same accuracy, and they don't force you to make big commitments in your movement to be able to get high firepower out of them. So that's where I stand on that. What they could also do, you know, is make it so that shooters are less maneuverable, but that would be way, way less fun for like everybody because everyone starts on shooters. Like if they give you the Splattershot Junior as your starting weapon again, like everyone's just gonna be like, wow, this feels really sluggish now. I don't like making things slower. If you're gonna do, you know, either add complexity or make things faster or make it so that speed has a trade-off or something. But like mobility, having a fast, responsive, maneuverable game, that's what really lets you express yourself as a player. That's what really makes watching the game exciting. That's what lets you give a visual signature. Like that lets other people look at the screen, and without seeing any customization options of the weapon you're playing, just the way you're moving, they can see that it's you, you know? The best games have that. You look at, like, something like a MOBA or StarCraft or I'm personally biased, Super Smash Bros. Melee, like some of the really, really high skill intensive games, you can kind of just look at the way that a player's moving and be like, oh yeah, I know who that is. I know which player individually is doing that. Because the movement is so nuanced and so precise and so complex. Like, I want that for Splatoon. And slowing things down is not the way that we get that. So, fast, responsive, says Devi, who plays Hydra. Okay, look. When you have charge and bullets are coming out of your gun, they're pretty fast and responsive, okay? That's funny. Hope the bow will be good, as it looks fun. I want to try it. Yeah, you know, so many people are so excited for the bow. It just, like, bows are so innately cool. They're like the swords of projectile weapons, you know? Are they, you know, outmoded and never used in, like, real-life combat anymore? Sure. But are they sick as heck? Yeah, and everyone wants to see more of them. Like, Robin Hood is so cool because he has both a bow and a sword. Like, how much cooler can a guy get? That's why there are so many movies of him. that and he gets all the ladies or whatever. That's all you need to be cool, though. You need a bow, a sword, and to be hot, and then you're good. You could be a movie star. So I hope that the bow makes us feel like movie stars and not like we're throwing crayons at the other toddlers. The bow looks mid, Bab. That's a compliment, honestly. I think it looks like I think the bow in its current state that we've seen is worse than any weapon in Splatoon 2. Any main weapon. I think that every single other weapon in the game I would take over one of these bows right now. I only fall for bow and sword users. There you go. New Brella variant, since I want to commit to that class. That would be really cool. The Brella, like, it was so cursed by the netcode, and people are saying that, you know, people who have more networking experience than I do, people are saying that they generally think the netcode that they were seeing looks better in this game, in this match that we watched. Granted, this is probably taking place in Japan. If you look at the Japanese version of this, they have Japanese characters in place of the names, but, like, it's still the same gameplay. So chances are these were all Japanese testers, and that means that they're playing much closer to each other, even if they're working remotely, than the average NA match is going to be, you know, across the vast... Our country spans an entire continent. Like, think about that for a second. It goes from one side of the continent to the other side of the continent. That's a lot of space that the signal has to cover. So latency is going to be a little bit worse for us, especially connecting to people on the other side of the world. But Brock did say that he noticed some ledge glitching in a place here or there. So you can see that, you know, there's spectator mode, so there is a little bit of that same camera jitteriness that we're familiar with from, not jitteriness, camera weirdness that we're used to from Splatoon 2. There's a little bit of that going on. But hopefully the netcode is better, because that is what people seem to have been saying. Any H3 players here? In Splatoon 3, we don't know yet. No, they'll probably bring it back. H3 is very cool, but it also hurt hand and hard to aim. So I do not play it. I know Bab's got some experience on it. They're a fan of the cherry, I think. H3 is banger. Yeah, there we go. He likes all the quirky weapons. Revive cherry. All right. The Nautilus comes back. I do like the Nautilus. It's grown on me. At first it felt frustrating because of the kill time and, like, the dominance over the mid-range, but having played alongside one, I can also see its limitations, that, like, it can't just hold forward and front line. It kind of needs to play the midline role, so it needs someone else to push in for it. Depending on kit, you know, it could be better or worse. So I kind of like the Nautilus. I would rather have other weapons toned up to the point where they can compete with the Nautilus than to have the Nautilus toned down. I guess if anything, maybe take a little bit of range away from the Nautilus, and maybe that balances it a little better. But I think it's in a relatively good spot. I'm of the opinion that you should buff more than you nerf. That you should like give the player more control, give the player more expressiveness, give the player more power, and just make sure that every weapon has that level of complexity, that level of power, that level of interest. That doesn't mean you need to make everything more complex. You can have a weapon that has a very simple playstyle and it's just a very effective playstyle. I'm thinking like Monster Hunter weapons. Like there are some Monster Hunter weapons that you could teach a class about. And then there are some Monster Hunter weapons that are just like, stand there and tank the damage and do this one move over and over again. And that doesn't mean, you know, any of them are bad or badly designed. It just means that like some are simpler, and that's good for people. Sometimes it's nice to have a weapon that it's easy to just step right into and know exactly what it does. And then sometimes it's nice to have a weapon that you really need a specialist to be able to use. I think that's cool. That creates strategic depth, but everything should be kind of strong. Everything should have like some really big weaknesses, but also some really, really, really big strengths to offset those weaknesses. And as long as they can pull that off, like, the more weapons they can shove in this game, the better. Why not be all shooters? Come on now. I like shooters. I will probably play shooters, even into Splatoon 3. But I love the variety of the weapons in the game, you know? What other gun game is there where you can curve your bullets? Like, think of what a bucket can do in Splatoon 2. It's not just that it can curve up over the top of cover, which is already sick and already a thing that you don't see in other shooters, but you can, like, as you're spinning, make different parts of the projectile go in different locations and literally curve your shot around to hit someone. Like, that's so sick. Why doesn't every weapon have something sick like that? With shooters, they can just paint their feet and then like strafe and go back and forth and go like zip all over the place. And that's an insane superpower. And then the dynamo is just like a really big stick that like if you are in range of it and you haven't splatted it already, you are just dead because they should never miss their shots and it always wants shots. Like all that variety is so cool. And again, you just don't get that in a lot of other shooters. You need to introduce a lot more complexity, much different kits, different like specials and ultimates and secondary weapons and stuff for a game like Valorant or Overwatch to feel like that. And Splatoon can just get away with it because they're squids and ink, and it's more fantastic and more cartoony, and they can morph the characters in all of these different ways, and they can make it goofy. I think like shooters kind of suffer in a similar way to sports games, in that a lot of sports games try to be sims of that sport. They try to be like as realistic as possible. Why would you be realistic when you're in a video game? Like the sickest thing I've ever done in a snowboarding game was from like SSX Tricky, where you go off a ramp and you're airborne for literally like 15 seconds in the air. You chop yourself in half with your snowboard as one of your moves. You're like frog hopping on it, all this crazy stuff. And then you just land on your back, completely whiff the landing. And instead of having your back broken and ending the run immediately, your character just goes, all right, feet on board on snow. I think I got it this time. That's so hilarious and goofy and awesome. And Splatoon can do those things because it's not trying to be this like jingoistic military shooter. It's just a bunch of like weird morphling squid children that are spraying ink at each other or something. It doesn't have to make sense. And because it doesn't have to make sense, they're able to do some really cool things with the game mechanics. All right. Anyway, I'm excited for Splatoon 3. We're going to be making content for it for sure. We will definitely have at least one video come out before Splatoon 3. Probably one and then like a mini one after that. So stay tuned to the YouTube channel for that. I'm working on a video on communication. So there's your sneak peek into what's coming up. Because communication is something that will carry over into Splatoon 3, unlike like any other video that I could make. So anyway, that is about where my head is at about the trailer so far. Hope you guys enjoyed and maybe saw something that you hadn't thought about before or that made you think. But we're going to call it for now. And let's see. There's somebody who would be interesting to raid at the moment. I'd be down for a little bit of raiding. Let's go and pillage. Okay, dude is doing an analysis video or an analysis stream on Splatoon 3 right now. So let's go and send you guys over to that, since that's the content you're here for right now anyway. What do you say? Squid Roll has iframes? Yeah, I talked about that at some length. Okay. I didn't actually have the creator dashboard open, so it's going to take me a second to get the raid up. There we go. Okay. All right, everybody. Go tell dude I said hi. As if I know him. I've never actually worked with him or anything like that, but it'll be fun anyway. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.